Okay. So now that you understand trend line, let me show you how I measure as well so that I can predict my entries. Because the truth is that when you are in the market and you're kind of looking at price and you're like, okay, I think price is going to do this. I think price is going to do this. The better you understand where the possibilities are, the easier it is for you to have a little bit more clarity and a little bit more confidence in your trade. What I mean, I typically like to measure the distance, right, between these moves just because if in my higher high or my higher low, and let's say price makes a higher low and now it needs to make another higher low, you kind of don't know where it's going to stop at, right? But if I can have an idea, and it doesn't always land perfect for me, which is why I have this 3-point measure of how I do it. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how I do that because it doesn't always work out in my favor. Sometimes it doesn't. But I like having a higher case probability than having none at all. And I'm just guessing. I rather have these points of understanding than just leaning completely on just letting the market go. Right. And so it matters to me because, trending moves often move in similar size and similar lengths, right, to each other. And it's like if my first candle moves a certain distance, I'm paying close attention to that. Cause then I'm like, okay, price did this distance quite a bit. And then it gives me a better understanding to say, okay, the next higher low or the next higher high, it's going to probably move in the same distance. Again, it don't always work this way, but I'll show you what I do to measure that. It may be like a little bit smaller, but the more understanding you have, the better your entry can be. And honestly, I believe that it gives you enough understanding of what the market's going to do, and it gives you a lot more confidence. And then you're not as like scared, or you're not as like, "Ooh, like is price going to break this high?" The more tools you have to understand before it even does it, the better and the more confidence you are in your trade. Cuz let's just be honest, when we get in these charts, is really you're kind of nervous, right? Let's just be real. Like you have more anxiety around trading than actually anything because you're just like, wait, is price gonna do this? Like you just have a lot of anxiety. And so the more you can mark up, the more you can build this case. When price don't respect it, that's why I don't get mad at trades that lose. Cause I know that I did everything I could to ensure that I was making the best choice possible with getting in this trade. So if you notice, like when I do a call out and it doesn't happen the way that I thought it was going to be, I'm not really butthurt because it's like, okay, price had to break this structure, but I did everything that I needed to do to make sure that this was a right trade, So I don't really get too upset about my trades or if they go the wrong way. Does it feel good? No. But I don't get upset, especially when it's a trade I really planned for, right? Meaning I really took my time with understanding what the market was doing. I had a clear understanding. And if it broke that, I wasn't gonna win that. There's nothing I could do at that point that would have changed any of that possibility. Like that's how I would have looked at it. Like, oh, this was beyond even my understanding of a possibility. Like I wasn't gonna win this is how I would look at it. Like this was beyond my control, right? All right, so let me show you how I actually do that. So let me walk through that here. All right. So let's just say we get into the market, right? And this is what we have going on right here. I'm going to highlight our candle so that we can understand how measuring works, right? Okay, so let's just do this in real time. Let's just say you were in the market and price was right here on this candle. Let's say this candle had happened, right? Let's just say that's the candle we're trading, right? And this red candle over here doesn't exist yet. Let's right here. Let's better mark it. Let me just do this. Okay. So let's just say you're trading this candle and the red candle don't exist yet, right? But you have some lows here and you're trying to see like, okay, price is rejecting here. And you're like, okay, this was the last distance of the last low. Let me measure the distance of, the previous lows here. So for me personally, if I was looking at this and this is what I see in the market, I'm looking at this candle. I wouldn't necessarily go by this low because that shows me that there was a fight happening right here. But even though we're counting our highs to our highs by our top chain, the bottom chain sometimes can, whenever I see that this green was still technically a low, right? But it was green, that means that we are strong in our uptrend. That's what that would tell me. That would tell me our uptrend is looking really strong here, right? Because our lows are turning into greens, which means we are PTOU for sure. So I would have not been too worried about that, and I would have still measured, right? I would have still have measured this and this as a low. I would have measured this based on this red and this red. And the reason I would have did that is because this is still in alignment with the trend line, right? So if my trend line is going here, right? I would have measured these two reds because this red just showed me there was some struggle there, but it was still heavy on the upside. So I wouldn't have counted that as a red, me personally. So once we measure that, what I would do is I would right click this and clone it. Let's right click, clone. And then I'm going to then bring this in the forefront. Oh, wait, let's make sure our red was in the right place. Okay. I'm going to bring this into the forefront and I'm going to try my best to connect it as clean as I can, just so I don't throw my measuring off. Right. And then I'm going to make this a different color. Let me just do that color so I can significantly see the difference. Then remember, we're trading this candle, so this candle don't exist yet, right? What I would do is based on this candle, I would then come over here to my trend line and I would mark it at the tip. I would mark it at the top. And let's do these as green because green always represents my targets. Mark it at the top. And then I would mark it at the middle. Now you may say, well, Val, how are you gauging that? I'm like, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm like, okay, that's the middle. Then if I decide after this candle here to get in a sell when I see this candle is red, I'm going to aim for 3 targets. This being the first target, and boom, if I was in this trade, would I have hit that target? 1,000%. Or this second target, I would hold for that, but know that this was my main target here. And then I would then if price wanted to keep going, it's possible it could go to my third target. That's how I'm typically deciding how long I think the sales will happen. Now, if you're on a PTOU, overall objective of this trade is buys, buys, buys. So it's very rare that I'm going to enter in on a sale because I don't want to go against the market. And we talked about that before. I don't want to be so confident in that because sometimes it can be a lot of switcheroo happening. But if I saw consistently price kind of falling within this distance, it'll be too good for me not to try it, you know? And in this case, had I made this my first target, I would have hit. Sometimes it don't happen that way. That's why I say it's good to build all of this case scenario for the possibility, but it may not happen that way. As you can see, price didn't fall to that second line, but it definitely hit that first line. So I like to build that as my target range so that if I get in this trade, I'm like, price is going to hit somewhere in this distance here so that I can have a better probability of my sell. And I do that the same way on the other side. So let's do that, right? All right. So again, let's say we're still trading this candle here. Now let me measure my high point. Let's measure. So you go get my trend line, right? We're trading this candle. So I see, boom, price just made this low. You know it needs to make a high, right? And so when it does that, now let me measure this. right? And then I'm going to clone it, right? And boom. And then I'm going to make sure it's a different color. And then now let me build my 3 points of targets. I'm going to do the top. I'm going to do the middle. And then I'm going to do the end. Right. So let's make all these green because I like to make my targets green. Right. So we got green, 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 green. Okay. So let's say this candle, I end up getting in at the bottom here and I'm like, all right, now it's time for me to ride this bad boy up. Right. Let's get a smaller arrow here. Just bear with me because that arrow is just too much. All right. There we go. Okay. So, okay, that arrow actually was important. Let's get it back. Okay, so price, I got in here for my sell. So I got in here for my buy. And now I have 3 opportunities that I can hold for. I can hold for this first target, this second target, or this third target. Now, you can still have zone, right? But when you're following the PTOU and you're just trading price action, you are not holding for zones. You're holding for the trend itself. So if I'm being honest, you could have just held down here. As soon as price broke, remember we had that example in the video, you could have put your buy here and just followed and saw price, okay, boom, it's respecting it. Boom, it's respecting it. Boom, it's respecting it. Okay, we had a little bleed over here, but it's respecting it. And you could have held it and held it and held it. But if you want to compound and you want to trade on what the price is doing in that moment because you don't trust, you can do that. I'm just showing you the examples. Like this measuring tool is only realistic if you're trading between candles. You're trading the 4-hour candles and you're trying to find movement there. But if you're trading like down the actual whole trend, you could just put your buy here and hold for all of this. And you could just measure it just to track it to make sure price is following, right? So how you trade this is completely up to you. I personally sometimes it depends on how I feel. I may buy at the bottom and just hold it. But when you're holding it, as you can see, right? Price comes, let's say you entered here, right? Price comes and it touches close to your actual entry for a while before it's far away. So then you just have to decide which one of those you want to do. And what I love about these measures, right? Once you get your measuring tools and you have them on your screen, and then so can you imagine having your zones in place, having your targets in place, and having all this stuff on your screen? You know exactly what that market possibility is going to do. So, meaning not only do you have this measurement here and you have these as targets, you can go in and look at zones too, right? And you can even be more precise and say, okay, here's a zone right here. Let me mark this zone up because it may hit this zone and get stuck. So you're building this scenario. And what I mean by that is I have these as my green targets, right? Let's say if I was in this buy down here, but then I see here where price is showing me where it reacts. So if I'm following the trade and I see that price gets here and then it's stuck, it gets here and it's stuck and it's here and it's stuck. So now I'm like, okay, we probably gonna hit that second target for sure. So then what happened over here? Look, if I would have got in down here, what did it hit? It hit that second target. It hit it because you saw that before it happened. You was over here and it told you the story. So then once it hit that second target, what had to happen? It needed to now go make a higher low. Then it was able to come back and push even further. So the measuring tools don't take away from your day targets, your day zones or your targets. I'm sorry, it don't take away from your actual zone markups. Honestly, it'll even show you when you go in the 5 minute or if you go in the 15 minute or wherever you're tracking this, you will be able to see your measuring tools there and you can watch price creeping up to it as well, you know? And so measuring for me just really kind of cleans up the understanding of the trade so that when that movement is happening, I'm not kind of okay, my screen is focused. Sorry. I'm not really scared of what's happening. I'm not scared of it. So measuring to me is a really great benefit. And I highly recommend everybody try it because the more you have on your screen, the better you are prepared when you're actually in this chart. All right, let's keep building.